Hey, I'm Olivia,
I'm Regan.
and you're listening to Soarin Around WDW. All right, so just a couple of things to kind of review today as far as news, and then we'll get into our Parks of the Past episode this week. So the first thing that I just wanted to kind of touch on as far as news was the Disney Treasure came to the port, and it is tentatively scheduled, or not tentatively, it's scheduled to set sail December 21st, 2024. So it got there a little over a month ahead of time. I know some people went out to the port to see it, and there's a lot of people that have like travel agent previews and are going to get to tour the ship and different stuff. So super excited about the new ship. It looks awesome.
Interesting timing to have a ship. Does that mean the first cruise goes over Christmas, or is it just a quick?
No, I think it goes over Christmas.
Yeah, wow, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So like, you really have to want it.
Yeah.
to go on the first one.
Exactly.
Between the money and being gone for Christmas.
Yeah. Yep. And it definitely is pricey. The first cruise is always like insanely expensive. But I think a big part of that is because a lot of people on that first cruise are getting to go like for free through their travel agency. Or I don't know, their travel agency is like footing the bill so they can get content, especially like all the influencers. So, but yeah, that is like a big commitment to be like, okay, yeah, I'll be gone over Christmas. But it's a pretty cool opportunity. It obviously doesn't happen that often.
Right.
So, yeah, that's the news about the cruise line. And then Tiana's opened this past week at Disneyland. And I haven't heard that there have been as many issues as Disney World. What have you heard?
Really?
Oh, have you heard a bunch? Oh, maybe I'm just like in the dark.
I thought that I had sent you the article that I saw that, like, on opening day, it didn't open for, like, hours.
Oh, no. Okay, I missed that somehow.
Yeah, and then I just read something today that, like, it broke down and had to get evac'd, like, early in the evening one day.
Oh,
and
no.
They never reopened.
Oh, no. Okay, well...
So I don't know if it's having as many, because, like, ours was riddled. Like, I definitely didn't hear about much prior to... like opening day, like with previews and stuff, I feel like.
Yeah.
Like it did for us, but no, I think I mentioned something about that when Steph and I were there, at Magic Kingdom yesterday. Was like I saw Tiana's and I was like, oh yeah, Disneyland's open, and like I hadn't heard any crazy problems prior, but I heard that it didn't open on opening day when it was supposed to. Mm-hmm.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, okay. Otherwise, I know I've been watching a couple of people through Instagram that are there for and were there for opening day and got to ride. But I didn't really, look super deep into like if they had to wait super long or whatever. But yeah, okay, cool. Interesting. And then today was the 35th anniversary of the Little Mermaid movie, the original. So that is a fun little tidbit. That also is crazy. I did not realize that it was 89. Like that is a long time ago, like considering, I don't know. I just thought for some reason it was a 90s movie. So that really caught me by surprise.
Wasn't 90s animation stuff more like, wasn't that like Lion King, Aladdin era?
Yeah, I guess so. And like Beauty and the Beast, I think was 90s. But for some reason, I just like put that one in there with them. So yeah, it was interesting when they announced it. I was like, oh wow, I would have thought like 30 years, but yep, 35 years. So that's exciting.
I saw some stills of like they were doing some overlays of some of the original pencil drawings from the movie on top of like the animated, like the finished animation.
Oh, cool.
So that was a cool little like piece of Disney history to see that they were releasing like special with the 35th anniversary. So
yeah.
And I saw Jodie Benson was doing something. She was like doing voice work for like a kid's book or something.
Oh, cool.
About the movie or something like that. I'm not sure. I saw her recording something like as Ariel in the studio, so that's cool.
Yeah, that is
See
cool.
her back.
And then the only other little update to prior news is the brawl that caused Disney Magic Kingdom to close and for people to be like evacuated out at the end of the night. I got a little bit more information. They posted,
from like forever ago, you mean?
Like in October.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, was there another one? I didn't hear about it.
No. So I guess basically they were like kind of near Casey's Corner, and
Okay.
they were like all kind of standing there for the fireworks, and it was a domestic dispute between family members, but they like released the guy's name and mugshot and everything, but a 21-year-old male basically started attacking like a female, and it was like beating her up on the ground, like punching her in the face, and she was like holding a napkin to her face, but apparently they were all family members. So I don't know what happened.
It's always family members at
It's like
Disney. It's never
horrible.
just randoms fighting each other. Yeah.
So that's what caused like the chaos, and then I guess like a balloon popped, and then people thought there were gunshots, and then everyone got like evacuated out. So that was a little bit of an update, but there were like a lot of people crying and screaming and all that
I wonder
jazz.
if it would have been
So,
as big a deal if the balloon hadn't popped.
probably not. I don't think, because it was like one guy. It wasn't like a whole brawl started with all these people or anything. But
Right, yeah.
or,
It's like
you know,
everyone starts hitting each other.
exactly, yeah. So it was nothing like
A
that.
bar fight in Disney.
Yeah. So that was the only other little update news I had. But definitely update everybody about the challenge in Kenny's Run.
Yeah, so earlier this week, Kenny the Pirate, who is a legend amongst the community of every ride runners,
Yep.
he just recently passed 2,000 rides. I think we've talked about on the show already, and he actually was now the first documented 52 ride run for every ride. And so what I mean by for every ride is that the Brothers WDW have technically done 52 individual rides for Parkeology, but Parkeology has the Tom Sawyer's rafts that count as a ride, whereas every ride does not have Tom Sawyer's rafts. So for Brothers WDW, their run on every ride would technically be 51 rides.
Yeah.
So Kenny was the first person to do 52.
And
So
what was the
if he had
difference?
done
What was the ride that Kenny did that Brothers didn't? Do you know?
When Brothers were there, Rock and Roller Coaster was not open.
Ah, which is a big one time-wise, for sure.
No, it must be more than that, though, because Test Track is closed now, and it wasn't then.
Okay, yeah. So there were a couple differences.
Yeah, there's a couple differences. So, technically speaking, if Test Track were open, there'd be 54 by Parkeology's standpoint and 53 in every ride.
Yep.
But, I mean, there's basically never a time anymore where all the rides
Everything
are
is
open at
open.
the same time. Like, even during the summer, they closed Peter Pan. They closed Jungle Cruise.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so Kenny did the first 52. He also did it with over an hour to spare.
Yeah, he
which is
crushed it.
just insane. Yeah, it was such a good run. He had an hour and like probably 30 minutes left technically if you count it from when you got in line for the last ride.
Yeah.
So just insanely good run. I got to speak to him a little bit earlier this week and just congratulate him. It was just a really good run. So hopeful, like he's got to be the most consistent runner as well. Besides Brothers, like Brothers on the Parkeology side. Kenny's just super consistent. He does 1 million runs a year, and it's always fun to see. So,
Yeah.
congrats to Kenny on 52. We're gonna be going for the same 52, technically, potentially 53 when we run. But yeah, kudos to Kenny.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we're going to dive into the second part of our 4-part series, Parks of the Past, getting into Epcot, which is what y'all voted for this week. It's funny, the poll was like very close between Epcot and Hollywood Studios for a minute, and I was like, ooh, okay, which one do I prep? And then like all of a sudden Epcot just like took off. Like all these people started voting for Epcot. So I feel a lot of pressure. I know Epcot is so beloved by people. But we had a lot of good feedback about our last episode. So for those of you who listened and gave feedback, we appreciate the feedback. It's awesome to hear that you're interested in what we're talking about. So that is fun. But so diving into Epcot. So Epcot opened on October 1st, 1982. So obviously a bit after Magic Kingdom. And
11 years.
Yep. Yeah,
11
which
years
is a
to
long
the day.
time. Yeah, that's a long time
It
of
was
just
not.
one
It
park.
was this. Okay, so this was the second park.
This was the second of 4 parks. Yep, at Walt Disney World.
Yeah.
So it kind of works that people voted for this. I was
Right.
like,
Right.
oh, okay, this makes sense. Literally zero
Right.
people voted for Animal Kingdom. So I was like, okay, I think we know the order, but I'll still put
Yeah.
up the poll. Which is funny because that's the order they opened in. So it just like
Yeah.
worked out that way. But anyways,
Nostalgia talking.
it originally opened as Epcot Center, and it used to be referred to by a lot of people as the Permanent World's Fair. So do you
Yeah.
know, off the top of your head, without looking it up, what Epcot stands for? I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't know the E and the P. I know City of Tomorrow.
No,
It's not
you're close. You're close.
Center of Tomorrow.
No, Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow.
Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Yeah, I've definitely
Yeah.
heard that before, but didn't. Stick.
Yeah. I know. It didn't really stick for me either. I remember, for some reason, I remember the beginning, but then I was like, oh, yeah, is it City? Something tomorrow?
Well, don't they say it in the People Mover?
Yeah, I think they do. People Mover, a.k.a. Spaceship Earth, is what he's talking about. Right? Are you talking
No,
about-
they say
People-
it in like the People Mover.
Oh, like
don't
in...
they?
Oh, really? In TTA?
When you pass like the little model.
Oh, maybe, actually. It's been a minute since I, like, paid attention on TTA, actually.
Yeah, same.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
have
was
to do that
literally
when we
just
do our
on it. I
challenge.
don't remember. Yeah.
But the park initially had 2 very distinct areas, Future World and World Showcase. And on opening day, Future World had 6 different pavilions, which this is where it gets like interesting to me, how the pavilion, like I don't know, there's like the different pavilions, and now it's changed even more, which we'll talk about. But on opening day, the 6 pavilions were Spaceship Earth Pavilion, Communicore Pavilion, Journey into the Imagination, The Land, Universe of Energy, and World of Motion. And then the World Showcase only had 9 pavilions: Mexico, China, Germany, Italy, American Pavilion, Japan, France, United Kingdom, and Canada. So off the top of your head, from me listing the countries, can you think of which 2 are missing?
Africa and Morocco.
Africa. There's no African pavilion, sir. We're about to get roasted on.
No, there's like a little African area, isn't there?
No. There's no actual African pavilion. But you're right about Morocco. And there's another big one that surprised me that wasn't there on opening day.
Germany? Did you say Germany?
Yeah, I said Germany. Yeah. Mexico, China, Germany, Italy, American Pavilion, Japan, France, United Kingdom, and Canada. And you said Morocco.
There is 100% a little African section.
No. Anyways, the answer is Norway. Norway is the answer. It was not there on opening day, which is so interesting to me, like thinking about the layout and where Norway is.
Well, because they had a ride. Did they always have the ride there before it was Norway?
No. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they could build a ride.
Yes. So that, I mean, just thinking about like how big I guess it's not that big, but it is like a substantial amount of space compared to Morocco, which I feel like is kind of tucked back behind stuff more. But yeah, so those 2 were not there on opening day. But the original plan for Epcot was actually none of this. It was going to be an actual community. That's what Walt Disney wanted. That was going to have 20,000 residents. And the whole point...
Really?
Yes, the whole point of this area was for it to be like a living laboratory with different technology, and was going to be a circle with the urban city in the center, community buildings, schools, recreational complexes, and then would be connected by monorail and people mover lines. And all the cars and automobiles would be underground, so that people could walk anywhere without any kind of traffic or danger from the vehicles, like thinking about utilidors underneath Magic Kingdom. And Disney went as far with this idea as pitching it to the Florida State Legislature. They created a petition for the creation of the Reedy Creek Improvement District, which still exists today. It's called something different. But that was established in 1967. But then he couldn't get the funding and permission to start work until he had finished Magic Kingdom, and he died in 1966, so he wasn't able to see this whole thing to fruition. And so since he died before any of this could really come about, and obviously before Magic Kingdom opened in 71, everything kind of halted and they changed it into the park that it is today instead. So I thought that was very interesting. I was like, oh, so he like there was like a lot of stuff in his, Wonderful World of Disney, Wonderful World of Color show about Epcot and how it was going to be this community, and then it changed into the park after his death. So yeah, I learned a lot about Epcot when looking into this because I did not know. I feel like it's the park that I know the least about. So this was interesting. But the grand opening festivities for Epcot took place over 3 weeks in October. So they were supervised and directed by Disney legend Bob Janney. And the park officially opened on October 1st with a dedication ceremony right in front of Spaceship Earth. And the ceremony was run by the Walt Disney Productions chairman, Card Walker, the Florida governor at the time, Bob Graham, and then the president of AT&T, because at the time they were the sponsor of Spaceship Earth. And that was all thanks to Sparkcatcher blog. So thanks for writing that out so I could look through it and learn. But each pavilion at the time had its own custom opening ceremony throughout the next 3 weeks. So they kind of did little pieces, which I also thought was interesting. Instead of just doing it all at once, they kind of split it up into the main one and then broke off into the different pavilions. So I thought that was very interesting. But then after the initial opening, it was dedicated by Don Tatum and Card Walker, and a 450-piece marching band made up of players from college bands all over the country performed lots of songs. One by the Sherman Brothers, which, do you know who the Sherman Brothers are?
I know the name.
So they're responsible for like Mary Poppins, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, like a bunch. They're huge Disney legends. So they wrote songs exclusively for the opening called We've Just Begun to Dream and the World Showcase March. And then water, this was also super interesting to me. Water was gathered from major rivers, lakes, and seas from all over the world, from these different countries, and emptied into the Fountain of Nations to mark the park opening. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, really cool. They really put time and effort into this being like, a not just nationwide, but international event.
That's just like, I don't know if you've heard the story or if you've seen the Disney Plus episode about Shanghai pirates.
Yes, yeah.
But they like took pirate water from all the Pirates of the Caribbean rides around the world
cool.
and put it in there. Yeah. So that's cool.
Yeah, very cool. So during the 1980s, they added the different pavilions. Horizons was added in 1983. Then Morocco in the World Showcase was 84. The Living Seas in 86. Norway in 88. And Wonders of Life in 89. And we'll get into what all these were and are today here in just a little bit. But despite its initial success, Epcot was constantly faced with challenges of evolving with worldwide progress, and an issue that really caused the park to lose relevance and became really outdated by the 90s. So, 8 years in, they were like, how do we keep up with all the constant changes in technology, communication in the world, which is, I feel like, still something that they struggled with for a long time. And still do, because it is hard to constantly update. It costs a lot of money, obviously. And to maintain attendance levels, they introduced seasonal events, which is when they started the Flower and Garden Festival, the International Food and Wine Festival. Flower and Garden was first in 1994, and Food and Wine was 1995. So they've been around for a long time. And then since 2010, now they technically have 4 what they call neighborhoods instead, which I actually did not know this, like today. But it's split into, Future World was split into 3 neighborhoods, quote unquote: World Celebration, World Discovery, and World Nature. And then the World Showcase obviously stayed the same with the countries. But the World Celebration neighborhood, quote unquote, includes Spaceship Earth, Imagination, and then Innoventions, which used to be called Communicore. And
yes, the best part of Epcot was Innoventions, and now it's gone.
Yes, we'll definitely talk about it. And the Odyssey Pavilion, which I was like, what is that? And it's basically used for nothing, which is so sad. We'll talk about that too. And the World Discovery is now the Wonders of Xandar, where Gardens of the Galaxy is. And then Space and Motion over by Mission Space. And then World Nature is the seas, Journey of Water, and the land. And obviously now World Showcase has a total of 11 pavilions. Norway was the last one to be added, which I'm actually surprised they haven't done more. So the little section that you're talking about where you think it's Africa, which is not, but that it's a space. It's not.
You're just making it seem like I'm racist, though, and I'm not. Okay. There is a little. I sent you pictures and a link that it is definitely inspired by Africa. Like, that is the point.
Yes, I know.
There's no official African pavilion, but it's like a little outpost.
Well, yeah. Do you know why there's no official African pavilion? Because Animal Kingdom exists and has an entire African section.
Right. No, 100%. I'm not saying that's just like I think of that area as it's like a really small pavilion because like I don't know, there are other ones that are really small too.
Yeah, there are. Yeah, but not that small. But that is an area that I'm like, small. Why didn't they do more? They could definitely add more.
I agree.
So interesting to see what they could add. What country would you add next? Out of curiosity.
I don't know.
I'm surprised they don't have like India, like Taj Mahal. They could do stuff with Aladdin, like that. I was like, okay, I feel like that would be a cool country. The food is like unique.
Aladdin's not. Is that supposed to be Indian?
I think it's a combination of India and Morocco. Like, it's not just India. But it's like the Agrabah kind of looks like Taj Mahal. Don't make fun of me. People are going to make fun of us in this episode.
Well, we're just here treading on interesting waters here.
We're struggling. Anyways.
What country do you want to be in? It's like asking me, what's your favorite country? Like, setting me up for failure. I mean, I don't know. I was trying to think of like an IP that's untouched, but I can't really think of anything.
Yeah, no.
Because I was thinking about like Encanto and stuff, and it's like, but that's already
now that's going to Animal Kingdom.
Else.
I know. I did think Colombia, like Encanto, would be really cool.
I mean, like I would love more Moana representation, like an actual ride.
Well, that's what I was hoping they were going to do originally was Moana in like its own Tahiti area, like French Polynesia, but then they didn't. They just did it's cute. The Moana area is cute, Journey of Water or whatever, but
it's so crowded and so hot and wet.
Yeah, it is. Gross. Yeah, it is. It is crowded. The kids love it. I mean, it is really neat, but it's
really good for kids. Yeah.
But it is, it could have been more, and I feel like they could have made that its own country for sure. But anyways, and obviously biased, we're Finnish, so I think Finland would be cool. I don't know if there's really any tie to it or what they would do with it, but I do think like a Finland area
there's no
could
Disney
be cool.
IP for
there
Finland.
Is no Disney IP for that. Oh, something they could do, like Emperor's New Groove. They could do that.
Well, like
Machu Picchu, like Mayan. Yeah,
that'd be cool.
That would be cool.
And there's definitely that building is, the Mexico building is similarly shaped, and they kind of had this similar Mayan
ruins
building stuff at the Coronado Springs area. It looks very similar to that.
That's true. That's true.
But
so
but
give us your thoughts, people.
Everyone's always thought that like from the movie where he slides down the thing, it's like obviously a super easy ride to make. And
maybe Villain's Coaster, Yzma, going to Villain's Land.
Yeah, they did put a lot of emphasis. Did we talk about that?
Oh no, we didn't. We're gonna have to wait until next episode because Brazil is a thing. The D23 Brazil that we need to emphasize, and we talked a little bit about it on the last episode, but I don't think we got into, because they announced that right after we recorded, as they always do, so we didn't get into all the villains.
That's right. Yeah.
I forgot to add that to our list. But yeah, so let us know what country you guys think would be cool to add to World Showcase. There's obviously a ton of options, but it is hard to think about what would fit, what would be popular, what has food that's unique, what they could add to like the Food and Wine Festival, the drinks, like all that definitely is taken into play. IP, obviously. So yeah, curious to hear everybody's thoughts. And then talking about the neighborhood. So in 2016, Disney revealed that Epcot would be receiving a major transformation, quote unquote, that would help transition the park into being more Disney, timeless, relevant, family friendly. And then in August 2019 at the D23 Expo, Disney expanded on the plans and made a lot of promises. And one of the most significant changes announced was the 4 neighborhoods and getting rid of Future World, dividing into what is now known as the World Celebration, World Discovery, World Nature. So they obviously did not come through on a lot of their promises. It took them forever to get that park done. It still isn't 100%. Well, I guess technically it is done for now. Like, right? I mean, it's never done, but the walls are down. Everything's up.
Yeah.
We've been a couple times since this has been open, but it was definitely different.
The only thing that's not done right now is Test Track in Epcot.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
Like, from what they're actually, like, currently planning. They canceled those plans, like, very soon after COVID hit.
Yeah. Budget.
Like, they just knew that they couldn't do it with the budget that was happening, like, closing for that long. They didn't close for that long, but, like, Disneyland closed for a long time. Like, and so, like, that was one of the big, like, that big thing between 2019, all the plans they had for Epcot, to what exists today is drastically different, which is why a lot of people are super skeptical about all the stuff they announced at D23 this year. Because they're just like, oh, well, nothing's real until it's like where the whole concept of, like, I mean, I don't know if it's where it derived, but where people, like, became, like, more aware of the concept of blue sky, and Disney just kind of, like, talking, and there was, like, no action. It's just like, this is all the stuff we want to do.
Dreaming.
Yeah. So anyway, continue.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into what is of the past. So I want to talk about first, real quick, there's a few past shows that are now gone, and the biggest one with the big overhaul recently is the Fountain of Nations. So it was original to the park, and the original show ran from 1982 to 1992, and then it was refurbished and ran again from 1993 to 2019, and it was this elaborate fountain show that performed to music every 15 minutes. So the
good.
Shows were, yes, it was so good, and there were a bunch of different songs, and it wasn't presented in any particular order, so it's always kind of unique or different. It was very rewatchable. But Disney movies like that are not really used in other places, like Rescuers Down Under, The Rocketeer, like a lot of movies that you don't see IPs throughout the park, and they incorporated that music in with more classic Disney music as well. It was really cool, especially at night when it was lit up. Like, it was just really beautiful. So that is something that
iconic.
Very iconic. I think a lot of people miss it with this new overhaul. Like, what got put there is just very lame and not great, and kind
there's
of
just nothing.
Yeah, it's like a meet and greet area, the statue of Walt, and then
they took out that fountain that was beautiful and like I said, iconic. And like every 15 minutes, so like you could just be walking by most of the time and something was happening with that fountain. Like, it was just made Epcot feel a lot more alive, I think, than it does today.
Yes, I agree. So that was a big bummer when that got removed. But they did have this show from 1993 to 1994, and it was a show that included the Fountain of Nations, but it was called Splash-tacular, but it was closed because the water from the fountain kept blowing onto the stage and soaking the performers and the guests, and it would always cause the walkways to get really crowded. People couldn't get through, so they nixed that pretty quick. But that was one that I was like, oh, I don't remember that. But it was funny to hear about. I was like, oh yeah, getting totally soaked. Kind of reminds me of sitting front row in Fantasmic. If you haven't done that, you definitely get soaked. Especially if the wind is hitting just right. It's like the whole time you're getting soaked.
You can get soaked in like not even in the front of Fantasmic if you're
true. Yeah,
if the wind is too crazy.
So that was an old show, and then they also had this thing called Epcot Computer Central, which was in Communicore, that had two shows. The Ask Tutor Computer Review and then Backstage Magic. Both were kind of talking about how computers controlled park operations around Disney World, which is kind of cool. So it kind of showed like how everything was computerized and how that worked. And it ran, for about 10 years and then got removed. And then Disney Vision Adventure, which was an in virtual reality. It was a show in Innoventions about how Disney movies are made using CGI technology, and it featured Yago from Aladdin, which that's really cool too. There were like a lot of really cool things, especially in Innoventions as we get into it. And then Future Core was a drum and bugle core band which entertained guests. They performed from 1982 to 2006. I kind of do remember this. It was a big instrumental show. So that was another one that was over in Future World. And then they also had Future World Brass, which was like similar but with brass instruments, from 1982 to 2000. And then most recently, there was Wheel of Fortune Live. Did you know this? They had a live Wheel of Fortune show?
No, I didn't know that at all.
I didn't either. It was located between Test Track and the Journey to Imagination with Figment. And I was like, that's a huge space. Like, what does that mean? Like,
Is that
in my head, I'm like...
Yeah, wait, what?
I know. That's what it said online. I was like trying to get more information, but it was kind of... So basically, Wheel of Fortune did this traveling show for a year at Disney where they just had like live recordings of Wheel of Fortune each day. And I was like, wow, I did not know this at all. And that's when you lived there, right? 2017 to 2018. Didn't you live there by then?
Yeah, there was definitely no Wheel of Fortune. I mean, like...
It must have been indoors.
Right, and there's no indoors between Test Track and Figment.
Well, yes, there is. But I don't know if it was in this spot.
Not, like, I would need to see the building that it was in. Because all I can think of is that big circular building next to Test Track. Between Frozen and...
No, yeah, that's the worst.
Track.
That's Odyssey. No, Wheel of Fortune. Sorry, I was not prepared. Fortune Live Epcot. Where was it? Where exactly was it? Okay. They said it was in the area circled below in this map. So they used a big green screen behind contestants, which rotated to different backgrounds. Okay.
Yeah, it's out. Super tiny. It looks like it's outside.
Interesting.
It's outside.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it's just on like a giant portable stage that was outside. I kind of do remember seeing like that logo.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
Around.
I love Wheel of Fortune, so I was like, wow, that is a big bummer that we missed out on that. But yeah, it was for almost an entire year.
Well, no, that was before. I mean, I moved there in 2018, so it depends on when it stopped.
Okay. But yeah, so super interesting. And
also,
then,
we never went to Epcot until Guardians opened.
True, that's true. We went, but not as much. Actually, Maddie hadn't been in 10 or 15 years when I just took it. Maybe 20 years when I just took him with Eiley in February. He hadn't been in a long time. But now it's becoming a really awesome park. And I know a lot of people, I mean, I shouldn't say that. A lot of people loved Epcot how it was and think the changes are horrible, but there are good and bad changes. Okay. So getting in, better than they used to be. Yes. So getting into past attractions. So there is this area, and this is going to get into a deep dive. First one real quick, called the Wonders of Life. And it was open from 1989 to 2007. It's still on the map today, but it is empty and remains abandoned. It's the Golden Dome. If you pull up the Epcot map, and we will try to insert a picture. I know Regan hates when I do this for our people watching on YouTube, but the Golden Dome that is on the Epcot map, it's just there, but it's not labeled. That was Wonders of Life. So when you're looking at
it.
Yes.
It's between Guardians and Mission Space for those of you that have the app at home.
Yeah. When you're thinking about it, it's between there. And I have seen it, but I did not realize what it was. And it's also very weird that it just sits there empty and abandoned, which we're going to talk about. But from 2007 to 2018, after it was closed from its rides, it was used for special events. So they were supposed to, in 2019, they announced in this big D23 announcement that it was going to become something called the Play Pavilion. And then they decided to nix that in 2021. They said, we're not going to do that anymore. And now it's just sitting empty. But from 1989 to 2007, it was made up of different areas. The Cranium Command was one of the biggest ones. Body Wars was another big one. Goofy About Health, Anatomical Players, the Health Theater, Sensory Funhouse, and Body Wars is the thing that most people think of when they think of this area.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I can like picture in my head for some reason.
Yes, I definitely went on Body Wars. It was Epcot's first thrill ride, and the ride queue is actually still intact today and sits empty. You know those people that like go to abandoned places, they like sneak in places? Well, somebody snuck in there a few years ago, and I think 2019, and it was still there, just empty. The ride, the queue, there was this creepy little doll in the Cranium Command area. Like, it was so creepy. Whoa. So, it's crazy to me that this is just sitting in there empty. But it basically looks a lot like Star Tours. It was designed after Disneyland Star Tours attraction, and then it opened like right before Hollywood Studios Star Tours attraction opened. So it's basically the same ride vehicle, the same, like when you look at the queue, it's the same setup for how you enter the ride.
When did this close?
This closed in 2007.
Okay, so we've probably been on this.
Yeah. I definitely had been on this. And I remember this building. Like when I look at pictures.
Well, I think for some reason my brain, whenever I walk over there now, I think that I always thought that was like the show building for Mission Space.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's so close to it.
Yeah, it is very close to it. And
so why aren't they doing anything with this area?
I know. That is the question. I'm like, is it haunted? What is the deal? We definitely are going to get into this when we talk about Epcot of the future, because I'm like, there's so much space. Why don't we use this for something?
Like empty.
Yes.
It must be... Okay, go.
I don't know. So anyways, so after that closed, they still used the front of house, because that ride was kind of like, when you look at the map of Wonders of Life, that was kind of off to the back inside, and so the front area, they basically closed that off to the eye and used it for different seasonal events that they would just bring people in there for, but they wouldn't, like, the ride was not open, you couldn't get back there, none of that. But they stopped using it for seasonal events in 2018. So it really has, like, totally sat empty for 6 years. But even before that, that stuff was still sitting back there, which is wild. So yeah, it closed. Body Wars closed in 2007, and I think then everything else was just like not super relevant, so they just decided to close the whole thing. But the reason that it closed was queasiness and motion sickness, which if you've ever been on Star Tours, like, yes and amen. But then Body Wars also had like an ick factor, so to speak, because it was like going through the body, blood, like it wasn't gory or anything, but I think it just made people like way more queasy than like Star Wars looking at ships and stuff, if that totally makes sense to me. So between the movement and the like visuals on the screen, they decided to just get rid of this whole thing. But it reminded me of like the movie Osmosis Jones. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's exactly what this ride reminded me of. Like, you're traveling through the body and you're fighting the immune system and all that. So anyways, that's what that was. Are you looking at pictures?
No, I'm looking at the fact that I guess... So the people that snuck in... Somebody snuck in and tried to, like, steal the animatronic of Buzzy.
Oh, yeah, which was a Cranium Command creepy doll.
Yeah, but he's, like, 300 pounds, so they just took, like, his hat and clothes.
That's also terrible. Why steal stuff? Don't do that, people. If you're going to sneak in there, get some pics, but then don't do that. But there was a lot labeled for, like... When I read about...
They did have plans for it.
Okay, what were the plans?
During the 2019 stuff. They announced
the Play
that they were
Pavilion.
Gonna do stuff with that building. Play Pavilion, yeah.
I said that. But then they nixed it. But then now it's just still sitting empty. That's so crazy to me that they haven't destroyed the building.
But at least it means that they're like... They were thinking about doing something. So that means that they will eventually probably do something with it.
Maybe, yeah, we'll see.
Sorry, that was so fascinating to me. I was like, I can't believe I haven't thought about that empty space that's just sitting there for forever.
Sitting there. It's creepy. So yeah, if you rode Body Wars, let us know what you thought about it. But I do remember it being like, I don't like Star Tours. It really makes me I love the concept of the ride. It's really cool. But now they have something better with Millennium Falcon. We can get into that in our Hollywood Studios episode. But I really do think that like ride vehicle is a no for me. I just really, it makes me so sick. So when we do the challenge, I have to just like close my eyes.
I don't know if you said this already while I was reading all that stuff, but they use pieces from that ride to repair Star Tours?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that is true. So I guess it's not really functional because they did use some of it for like refurb stuff for Star Tours now in the later years.
Same or very similar. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving on, because that's just one section of things, but I thought that was super fascinating. World of Motion was another area that closed. It was replaced by Test Track, so it was open from...
I've seen so many people... That's like the video... Have you seen the videos of the guys that used to go on that ride and they would just climb off?
No.
It's the craziest thing in the world. Dad showed me, like years ago, and like there are these guys that used to go... There was before like... There were like infrared lasers and stuff to like stop rides that people got off. So like they would just go off and like there's a documentary about it, I think, and they would just go off, like get off the ride and like eat lunch like with animatronics and stuff. It's crazy.
Weird. That is crazy.
And then they didn't do it for like years and years, and then one of the 4 guys died, I think, like a few years ago, and then so they did a documentary about it. They all went back to like reunite at whatever it is now. And anyway, check that out. It's a really, really good documentary or video on YouTube.
Okay, interesting. But basically, for those of y'all that don't know, it was an Omnimover attraction that was located where Test Track stands, but it just went through the history of transportation. So it was about 15 minutes long. It had 30 different scenes and began in like ancient days, ended with the future. Each scene had different animatronics that talked about... the narrative reminded a lot of guests of different parts of Spaceship Earth. So I guess that's why they decided to nix it, because they're like, we have similar things in Spaceship Earth, we'll get rid of it. And thank you to thetravel.com for giving it more information about this ride, because I was like, I have no idea what this is. I don't really remember this a little bit. But I do remember when they were building Test Track, because 96 was when I went for the first time. So I remember the construction, or at least them talking about it or something. Like, so yeah, there was a little bit about that when I was there, but now obviously Test Track has been done over a bunch of times. Curious what it's going to be when it reopens here next year. And then the Living Seas, which was replaced by Nemo and Friends, 1986 to 2005. It was basically the same as it is now, as far as like it was a aquarium, basically, with different information about the seas and how you can help the seas. And obviously when they got the Nemo IP, it was like a no-brainer to switch that over. But
was there still like a ride?
Yeah, you still rode through. It just wasn't the clamshells, I believe. I'm pretty sure. But you just saw into the tanks. Like, there wasn't really much going on. And then there used to be this show that you had to sit or stand and wait.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was like a much less of a queue and more of like a sitting area, that then when it was your time, you went from that into the place, into the queue. And then Journey into Your Imagination was replaced by Figment. But this version of the ride didn't have the Dream Finder. Figment wasn't that big of a role, but he still was in it. For some reason, what I was reading about it, this was from 1983 to 1998. And then again, 1999 to 2001, there was a different version. But it followed closely to Honey, I Shrunk the Audience, because that show was right next door. And the ride was like a trip to the Imagination Institute. The same guy who's in Figment, Eric Idle, was his character in the 3D film from Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. But people really hated this version of the ride. So in 2001, they totally revamped it into what it is today with Figment. Where Figment's a much more obviously prominent character. He's like the entire point of the ride. And I feel like this is another polarizing ride. You either really love it or you really hate it and think it's stupid. But I really love it. I love Figment so much. So this is like a always have to go on it for me ride.
No.
Yeah, I know. You do not like it. I know.
I don't hate it. I don't care about it. Like, if they got rid of it tomorrow, I would not be fazed.
Yeah. Oh, I like it. I think Figment is like such an iconic Epcot character. And then Universe of Energy, which we talked a little bit about in the last episode, but that was from 1982 to 1996, and then Ellen's Energy Adventure replaced it 1996 to 2017. But the Universe of Energy was actually like a similar ride where you travel through the, what energy is, basically learning about energy. But what was cool about it is the entire roof was covered in 80,000 solar cells that partially powered the ride. So I was like,
that's cool.
That is super cool. I kind of remember that building like looking like that, but as a kid, I guess I didn't realize they were like solar panels. And then the cars were like battery powered by the solar. And then the guide wires were embedded in the floor as opposed to riding along like a track like most of the other rides. And then when they introduced Ellen, the attraction was basically just added like Ellen and then Bill Nye the Science Guy and like a bunch of other people. But it's one of the longest attractions, lasting 45 minutes. So it was really long if you ever went on it. We talked about this last week, so we don't have to get into it. And now that was scrapped and replaced by the best ride, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. Definitely Epcot's best ride. So now well, yes, debatable, but now we're getting into Innovention. So tell me what you remember about Innovention.
So I'm a huge gamer, and so Innoventions was like the only place in Disney World that you could go and there was like, it was almost like an old school GameStop used to be, or like Walmart and Target, where they have all these like demos of games set up. And so it was like whatever Disney currently had published or like had their hands on to any degree for games. Like for me, the big one was Kingdom Hearts. Like that was the first place I played Kingdom Hearts, which is now like still like holds a really like special place in my heart. And but like I remember, like I think the most recent game that was in there was probably like Disney Infinity, with like the little characters that you put on there. But I don't remember much else other than maybe like the backyard sports games being in there. I don't know if Disney had a hand. That might just be like me misremembering things, but it was like Innoventions was like this giant, like it just felt like an interactive like arcade. It kind of felt like a little, like kind of like a Disney Quest, but with like actual video games, and then like these huge places that you could like explore. Like there was like kind of shows and stuff. Like it was just really like I loved walking through there every time I went to Epcot. Like 'cause as a kid, there wasn't a whole lot about Epcot that was appealing. And so that was definitely one piece that like if they could have revamped anything like in the 2019 revamp, I really wish they would have kept that alive and made it more modern, just because like I would have loved my kids to have something like that to like mess around in at like it just would have been cool. So there's just, I don't think there's anything now. It's just like those are just shops.
So basically there was the east side and the west side, and the east side was open longer. The west side got closed in 2019, but the east side had like Apple Computer had a thing in there, Bill Nye the Science Guy, there was Comfortville, Communications Dream Forum, Disney's Internet Zone, a Don't Waste It area, Forests of Our Future, which I remember like for some reason very vividly, Mission Space Launch Center, Kid Cot, Some of All Thrills, Test the Limits Lab, the Vision House, which I also remember. And so probably the most popular thing on the east side was the Sum of All Thrills. And that was basically where you got to design a thrill ride using this screen and let you determine the height, the speed, and then also you could add corkscrews, turns, and then once it was built, you climbed in it and rode it, which was really, really cool. I definitely remember going on this. This closed not that long ago in 2016. That was probably the most popular thing on the east side. And then
But you just listed 100 million things.
Yeah.
On just the east side. That's just nothing now.
Yes, correct. Yep. I mean, both of them are really like nothing now. One of them was totally demolished to make room for Moana, and then one of them is basically just remodeled into like shops.
If I could have not liked Journey of Water more, but now knowing that,
Yeah. I mean, they basically, got rid of it to make space for their whole
they have space.
reno.
Other places.
I know.
Like,
Yeah. We talked about this World Showcase. They totally could have done it. But then on the west side, there was this AT&T area. There was Aladdin's Magic Carpet VR adventure, which I don't remember. But I was like, that sounds similar to, like you said, Disney Quest. There was a Bill Nye the Science Guy area over there as well. And IBM had a whole area. There was this piggy bank adventure, this American Farm adventure, looking into the future. Tom Morrow had a playground over there. Video Games of Tomorrow, which is what you're talking about. And there was a video game playground. There was a whole thing about Where's the Fire. There was so much stuff. This is just some of the stuff. I could not list everything.
The fire one I remember for sure.
Yeah. I feel like the thing I remember the most was actually on East, the house. Like, I remember the house because it had a TV in the shower, and I was like, whoa, that is so cool. Like, actually, why is that needed? I don't know. But as a kid, I was like, that is the coolest thing. My house one day is going to have a TV in the shower. That's what I was, like, impressed by. And I remember making paper in the forest area. Like, you got the pulp, and you had to, like, pound it into a square, and then you had to dry it, and then you like got to take your piece of paper with you that you made. So I do, and some of All Thrills, of course. But on the west side, I do remember the video game section. I feel like you always went there when Dad and I went to go do like Test Track or Mission Space and stuff like that.
Yeah, just gravitated towards it. I mean, like, I'm looking at pictures of it now, and it genuinely like makes me sad.
Now we're just getting depressed. But yeah, I agree. I feel like they could have kept these sections, revamped them. I think the problem is, like, as they talked about, like, the big problem with Epcot in general is things change so fast, and keeping up is very costly. But it's not,
there's probably
not that costly.
Like, there's probably like, I don't know, 20 PlayStations or something there. It's like that's like not that much money. And
I think it was like not
years.
A money generator. Like, obviously you weren't paying for things. Like, there weren't going to be lightning lanes for that, or like a way to make money off of it.
I mean,
which is so,
I get it. I mean, like, you're not going to Disney World to play video games. I understand that, but it's just
most people aren't.
But that's just like where I learned about so many things that are now still important to me. Like, it's just cool. Sorry, Nike just got a hold of a squeaky toy and is now squeaking it. Come here. So, yeah, that is Interventions. And then Captain EO is another very popular one that people were, like, very sad that they got rid of. But that was a show in the area right next to Figment where now they have the Pixar Shorts Film Festival. But it was Captain EO from 1986 to 1994. And then came back again after Michael Jackson's death from 2009 to 2015. And then Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was there. Do you remember either of those? Did you ever see either of them? I remember Captain EO because wasn't it Michael Jackson themed or something?
Yeah, that's like what Captain EO is. So yeah, it's like all Michael Jackson.
Yeah. So I remember that for sure. I remember Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. Yeah, I think I've seen all three of those.
Okay.
At some point in my life.
Yeah,
I think I used to be scared of the Honey, I Shrunk the Audience one for some reason.
I kind of was scared of it, but I do remember I loved Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I loved the movie. I loved Honey, I Shrunk the Parents maybe even more than Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So I thought Honey, I Shrunk the Audience was super fun. I also loved the show that used to be on Disney Channel. But yeah, it was like a little scary as like a young kid, but I did really like it. And then the Pixar Shorts, though, I don't know that I've been in there since it's been that.
I have, yeah. It's good.
Do they just show, like, shorts similar to, like... I
believe so. I don't know if it rotates or if it's the same one every time. I don't remember.
Okay. And then there was this area in the Land Pavilion, and there was a show called The Circle of Life, an environmental fable, which was Lion King themed. That was there from 1995 to 2018. I remember that too, but now it's just like another little informational movie that is no IP, I don't think. I've never been in it. Have you been in it since it changed?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, which is such a bummer. I don't know why they got rid of it. Like, Lion King was such a really cool... Like, I mean, it's a great IP, obviously, but, like, I don't know why they would get rid of it to something without an IP, but maybe I'm wrong that there is
maybe the
IP
information they had in there was outdated, so they got rid of it.
It basically went through... Maybe it basically went through like symbiosis, so that's like not going to be different, really. But it was previously just a short before that called Symbiosis from 1982 to 1995, and then they changed it to the Lion King theme, and just kind of walked through it. But I was surprised that they nixed that one. Another one that was a beloved by the Jola family when we were growing up was Food Rocks.
Yeah.
Food Rocks. Oh, so good.
Food Rocks
so
was awesome.
Also in the Land Pavilion, it was where Soarin is now, which is crazy to think about, like the space.
Wait, that's where Soarin is now?
Yes, that's where Food Rocks was.
Oh.
It ran from 1994 to 2004. Before that, it was basically a very similar show called Kitchen Cabaret, which ran from 1982 to 1994. So basically there was a musical food show there from 82 to 2004. And then it closed to make room for Soarin'. But it was a musical show that parodied famous rock music and made songs about food. It sounds really lame. It was not. It was really cool.
It was awesome.
It was really awesome. If you never saw it as a kid, go look up a YouTube video of it. But that definitely is going to be our throwback pick. We've got a ton of pictures. They had this whole waiting area of like different food facts and like nutritional stuff. And it was, I still remember a lot of those songs in that show. But they were like the bad guys, which are like the junk food, and then there were like the good guys, which are like the fruit. And there was like a singing pineapple that sang Tutti Frutti. Like it was really good. So yes, the nostalgia is strong. Like obviously Soarin', I mean, we'll talk about it because that's going to be our old versus new, actually. So let me not jump too far ahead. But Food Rocks was so good. It was so good. And then Horizons was an area that was replaced by Mission Space, but that was there from 1983 to 1999. And it basically was this, if we can dream it, we can do it, and had all these audio animatronics about futuristic endeavors and like different things that they wanted to do. But again, very hard to update, especially with animatronics. Like, they already had Spaceship Earth, so it was kind of like, why do we need to also have this? And was replaced by Mission Space, which Mission Space is also now very out of date, and like the graphics are so sad. They probably should update that. But yeah, that is another like could be nixed as well, and turned into something different. But Horizons was only there for 16 years. I don't know. That is kind of a long time.
What were the years for that?
83 to 99.
I was gonna say, I don't remember that at all.
And then Mission Space came in, I think, for the Millennium, if I'm remembering correctly, because I remember going on it with Dad when I was very young, and there was no orange and green back in the day for you youngsters.
It was just orange.
It was just orange, and it was horrible. And I remember walking out, and I never really got motion sick as a kid, and I felt awful. And I remember seeing people puking like right outside, and then they added like puke bags into the ride, which they I think still have today.
They still do,
because it's so awful. If you go,
that's the only
side.
ride. I think, I don't know if I've already said this on the show, but like I remember when you and Dad got off of that ride and he threw up. Like you think in a trash can or in a bush, and like I remember just being like so scarred because I was like, my dad went on everything and this did that to him. Like, so I'm never going on that. I still to this day I've never been on the
You've never been on orange?
Version.
I would never go on orange again. I will also not do it.
My motion sickness is not good anymore anyway. So
same.
Like I think I would just die.
Same. Which Dad, like, I'm impressed. Dad, like, went on, like, everything as an adult and never really got motion sick, or at least not to my knowledge. We'll have to ask him next time he's on about his motion sickness stuff, because I don't think he does get motion sick. But obviously that is, like, next level.
Right. Horrible.
And then Millennium Village, which was located between the UK and Canada. I had to look at a map for this. It's in the World Showcase. This was only open from 1999 to 2000. And it had all these different interactive exhibits from other countries that were not featured in the World Showcase, like Brazil, Chile, Israel. Israel's another country I'm surprised they don't have. Saudi Arabia, Scotland is another great one. Sweden. They had all these interactive exhibits in there, a food court, this marketplace, this world culture game. And then now it's just used as a giant event venue. So it's still there. People can rent it out. They use it for like not conferences, but like, somebody rents out the park late at night. Like sometimes they have stuff in there for like food and wine or like different festivals. But it's just this giant event venue that is between UK and Canada. And I was like, oh, never knew that. Never even knew it was there. Definitely have never noticed it. So that's another hidden gem.
Pretty tucked away, yeah.
In the park. But it's still used today just for different stuff. And then the El Rio del Tiempo, which is replaced by 3 cabs, that was there from opening day in 82 to 2007. I like it much better as 3 cabs. I thought they should redo it to Coco. I know so many people have said that. I don't know why they haven't. Coco is such a great IP, and it does not get the love it deserves. So that would be a great one to stick in there. But for now, it's 3 cabs. And then the Maelstrom ride, which was from 1988 to 2014, which was replaced by Frozen. Another great classic Epcot ride that is ingrained in my brain forever. You will not be the first to pass this. You are not the first to pass this way. And the big troll
disappear.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
So Maelstrom was ultimately replaced by Frozen, which I get because IP. We've talked about this in an old versus new in another episode. And then there also were these World Showcase Adventures. There was Kim Possible, incredible, from 2009 to 2012. Why it wasn't until 2009, I don't know, because that show was out way before that. Missed opportunity, but really cool game that kids can play by going to different countries and basically encourage kids to be excited about going to the countries.
It was after the masks thing?
Yes, so I was going to just talk about that. So there also were these Kidcot stops. There still are Kidcot stops in each of the countries where you go, and back in our day, they had these masks, and you would make a mask, and then you get stamps at each country. And for whatever reason, getting all those stamps was like the highlight of the day.
Yep.
Like going to every country, getting a stamp at each country was so fun. You got to add something to your mask, and I'm sure we still have those masks somewhere. I should look in my cedar chest, actually, because we were obsessed, and we did one probably every time we went, and we were super into them. I gotta see if we have pictures. I know we have pictures, but I gotta try to find them.
Well, because that parade.
Yes, and there was a parade that had featured a bunch of masks in Epcot that was in the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah,
or, well, I guess probably 2000s.
And if you saw that parade, you immediately have that song in your head now.
Yes.
It's probably one of the best like Disney original soundtrack stuff.
Yes.
Like for the parks ever.
Very good. Yeah, very good.
I think it's featured in Epcot Forever.
Oh, is it?
I think that song is in Epcot Forever. I never got to see that show, but yeah, I think that Emily said that it's in that show.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but World Showcase Adventures was another way to get kids excited about going to the different countries. I mean, now it's way more exciting because there's actual really good rides in the countries, most of them. Or, well, between Frozen and Remy, and obviously Mexico is very cute. So there are more things to do in the countries for kids than there were, and meet and greets, like lots of character meet and greets over there. But so this was something else that they did, and then they changed it to Agent P, which was Phineas and Ferb, the little platypus guy, from 2012 to 2020, and now it's the DuckTales World Showcase Adventure, which is really cool. That's another good choice. I mean, DuckTales is classic and always so good.
But I also think that they remade it and modernized it.
Yeah, I think it's way better than it used to be, but all really good options, all really good ways to get kids to learn a little bit more about the countries while they're there, and then also have fun with going to the different places. So that is Epcot. That is everything that used to be there and now is either totally gone or has been replaced. A couple fun facts that I read about Epcot is that it's double the size of the Magic Kingdom. It's 305 acres, which is crazy. It does not seem that in my head. And then it took 3 years to build, and at the time it was the largest construction project on Earth. I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool, in 82. Jeez. So, yeah, that is Epcot. And then getting into our old versus new, Food Rocks versus Soarin'. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm honestly not that big of a fan of Soarin' anymore. Like, I think the music's good and stuff, but
even
it
though
hasn't
it's our
aged
name.
very well. Yeah, sorry. I mean, like, that's just happened to be what picked and fit the theme of going around the parks. But, like, Soarin', Like, it just feels like there's better versions of it that exist now in, like, Flight of Passage and stuff. Like, the simulator ride thing has not aged super well. Like, whenever I'm in there, I feel like I always just look for holes in the screens, and then I just,
Oh my gosh.
hyper-focus on holes in the screens. So I think I'm going to go with Food Rocks. I mean, like, that's probably nostalgia talking, to be honest. Like,
Yeah.
I just remember Food Rocks being so good. Like,
It was so good.
I wish I could see it again.
Yeah. Yeah. We definitely have the whole thing on some of the DVDs that Dad burned from our VHS tapes. Because he also loved Food Rocks. I would be curious what he would choose, because he did love Soarin' a lot when it opened. But I love Soarin'. I'm going to pick Soarin' because it's definitely one of my favorites in Epcot still. I know that it's a little outdated. It could be changed. I like when they go back and forth between California and the world just to like switch it up. But I love the sense. I love the feeling. I still think it's really cool. I'm not a huge Flight of Passage because of motion sickness. For whatever reason, that one really gets me more than Soarin'. Well, the glasses for one, for sure. And then the seating on Flight of Passage is annoying to me. I mean, it makes sense for the ride, but I don't like it as a person. I prefer the, Soarin' seating. So that is definitely a favorite of mine. I was so glad when Eiley was tall enough to go in February because I was excited to show her and she really loved it, thought it was so cool. And I think we got top row so she didn't see people's feet dangling, because that is one thing I do hate about that ride. It's gross. Yeah. Especially when you have somebody like barefoot swinging their feet right above you, like, ugh. But yeah, I'm going to pick Soarin' just for that. Right. And then for trivia, this is something that I don't know the answer, and maybe you do. We're just going to get like roasted on this episode. But where can you find Club 33 in Epcot? Is it A, above the American Adventure, B, above the Imagination Pavilion, C, in the Living Seas, or D, in the Wonders of Life Pavilion?
It's got to be either above the American Pavilion or in the Wonders of Life Pavilion. I'm going to go with Wonders of Life.
Well, Wonders of Life is the thing that became seasonal. So I don't think it's that. That's the one where Body Wars
above
was.
the American Pavilion is what I want to say then.
You think? Because there is something above Imagination Pavilion, but I think it's DVC.
I don't know.
Like where Figment is?
Yeah, I don't know.
So I'm going to say Living Seas, just because. You're going to say... Oh, it is above the American Adventure.
Let's go. See?
So this is your time to say your thing real quick.
Yeah. This is week 6, I think, of me plugging Club 33. Anybody that knows anybody that's in Club 33 and just has guest passes, I just want to see it. I just want to see what it's all about. I want to see what I can strive to achieve in my life by getting there at some point. So if you have access and want to get us in, shoot us a DM.
Yeah, let us know.
I have another piece of trivia I want to ask you, but I don't have multiple choice. This is just something that I learned yesterday.
Oh boy. Okay.
So out of curiosity, when we were on Pirates yesterday, I just decided to count the animatronics.
Okay.
That are in there. And I counted everyone that I saw, and I was still apparently way off. So how many animatronics do you think are in Pirates of the Caribbean if you had to ballpark it?
Oh, gosh. If I had to ballpark it, gosh, there's like 50 in every room. I'm going to say 248.
That's really high.
Okay, never mind. 128.
Roughly 120.
Okay.
Yeah, is what the internet said.
How many did you count?
I counted 95.
Okay, well, you weren't that off.
Including,
Jack.
all the chickens and everything.
Yeah, anything that moves, basically.
Right, anything that moves, yeah.
The pigs.
So I don't know. I'm probably going to do that in other rides when we do our challenge day, just because it kept me really engaged in a ride that I'm usually just kind of
Small
there.
World. Ooh,
yeah,
that's a good
Small
one.
World, Spaceship Earth. There's a lot that have a lot, and it's then you think about these rides now where they're this ride has more than 8 animatronics.
Yeah,
it's
so lame.
A million years ago they built, even if they're not as good as the current ones. It's anyway, so thought that was interesting, but
yeah, cool. Well, thanks you guys for
take us away.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for following, subscribing, rating, reviewing, liking. We appreciate all of it. It's always fun to get good feedback from y'all. If you made it all the way through this episode, please don't kill us for not knowing that much about Epcot and for not knowing much about geography of the world. we are just mere mortals and we are learning. But I know Epcot is a huge favorite for so many people, and so many of our followers and friends love Epcot. So don't hate us. But this was some of the past stuff, and we learned a lot. But looking forward to the next episode. Thanks for voting. Looking forward to having y'all vote again. I'm curious if Animal Kingdom is going to get nothing, or if people are going to be more into it. Yeah, because I was shocked that it got 0. The first time it got a few votes, but this last time it got none. People really wanted Epcot. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
See you next week.